Kenya just told the United States, hell to the no, y'all not about to bring Ebola across our borders. What are you talking about? You setting up a state-of-the-art facility.
Why would you create a facility within my country and it doesn't serve me? Yet the same facility is going to host people who are endangering my own life. Yet if I end up contacting Ebola, God forbid, I can't be taken care of. Furthermore, the Kenyan system, I'm not so sure if they have their own system or facility to actually help me out.
Tell me, Susan, what did you just say? Why do you want to visit America?
Because the America gives headache to this world.
That's the only reason you want to visit, right?
It gives this world headache. Why are they bringing Ebola to Kenya?
Why do Americans think that their lives are so much important than the lives of Kenyans? So that they establish a facility in Kenya that is meant for only Americans.
So a Kenyan court has halted the establishment of an Ebola center in Kenya. The Kenyan court and also almost every Kenyan has rejected this particular establishment because, listen, it doesn't even make sense. Why do you want to build an Ebola center or confinement center or whatever in Kenya whilst Kenyans do not even have any Ebola? None. Like no Kenyan has Ebola. But I don't want to talk much. Let's go into the video. Kenyans are reacting. Americans are reacting to this. Let's go watch, come back and talk.
Most Kenyans do not want Americans exposed to Ebola coming here. They want the Kenyan government to reject the US request and turn down any money the Americans are offering. The US is setting up a state-of-the-art facility here in Kenya for Americans who need Ebola care after getting exposed in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a Trump administration official said on Wednesday.
Why do Americans think that their lives are so much important than the lives of Kenyans? So that they establish a facility in Kenya that is meant for only Americans.
Kenya is close enough to Congo that this facility can provide, quote, high-quality care for Americans who would need to quickly get out of DRC and quarantine with other risks of a lengthy transport back to the US, this official added. But Kenyans question why their government agreed to this, worrying that it will import Ebola into the country.
Why would you create a facility within my country and it doesn't serve me? Yet the same facility is going to host people who are endangering my own life.
The US-Kenya quarantine deal has been opposed by both the Law Society, representing the country's advocates, and the Doctors Union, speaking for more than 10,000 physicians. They're demanding transparency from the Kenyan government and say the deal risks importing Ebola to Kenya. Kenya's health ministry has not provided more information about the specifics of the quarantine facility, but said it had ongoing discussions with the US government. Kenya is ready, Kenya is capable, the country's health secretary said in a statement.
A Kenyan judge said no to America's plan to house people who were Americans that got exposed to Ebola in Kenya, instead of bringing them to the United States where we have world-class isolation units for people who have Ebola. I'm Dr. Simpson. If you like this information, give me a follow. Now, it turns out in the United States, we have several major centers, including at Emory University, including at the University of Chicago, including at almost every major medical center, that are specifically designed for very bad viruses like Ebola. We can bring people back to the United States, quarantine them there, watch them, and if they do get sick with Ebola, take care of them safely and effectively here in the United States, where not only do we have infectious disease specialists, but other specialists that can help take care of them and all of the problems that might come with Ebola virus. This is good news for Americans, and it is good news for those who volunteer to go over and help with this devastating outbreak.
Kenya just blocked the U.S. from opening an Ebola quarantine facility for Americans on African soil. Now, the White House had said that that would actually open today, but it's now in limbo. It's supposed to be a 50-bed facility, and for Americans who have Ebola or who have been exposed to the virus, with this outbreak still surging in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and in neighboring Uganda to the east, with at least 220 dead and at least something like 900 people infected so far. So what happened in Kenya was that a constitutional watchdog called the Katiba Institute filed this emergency petition. This was yesterday, Thursday, and it said that the government was being reckless and that Kenya was essentially being used as a kind of dumping ground for America's infectious disease fears. Their exact words was that the U.S. was externalizing infectious disease risks to the Republic's territory. And then the judge acted fast, and the order is sweeping. Kenya's government can't open any facilities for Ebola quarantine, for isolation, or treatment that's linked to the United States or to any other foreign government. The Kenyan government now does have 48 hours to respond. The case is already set for June 2nd. And yesterday, Secretary of State Marco Rubio called Kenya's president, William Ruto, and offered $13.5 million towards Kenya's Ebola response. We look ahead to June 2nd to see if that quarantine facility actually gets up and running.
The Kenyan people are fighting back against the United States government. High Court Judge Patricia Nyande just ruled that the United States is barred from opening their quarantine facility on a military base. And the Kenyan government cannot accept, transfer, or admit anyone exposed to Ebola or experiencing Ebola symptoms. This comes as the Kenyan people were outraged that they would be opening the 50-bed facility with only 3 days of training, while their healthcare system is extremely stretched. 10,000 doctors signed a petition saying that would endanger public health. So overnight, President Ruto and Secretary of State Marco Rubio got on a phone call where Rubio offered him 13.5 million USD for Ebola preparedness efforts. One can only imagine what the Kenyan people will think about that, offering to pay a small amount of money to risk all of their safety. Now this will come up for review on June 2nd, but the Law Society has filed a constitutional petition. And American medical workers are also upset with the decision because it will cause a delay in their care and it increases risk to more people.
It's Friday, May 29th. Here is a quick Ebola update. A court in Kenya has stepped in and blocked the U.S. government's plan to build a makeshift quarantine facility that was intended for U.S. citizens who were exposed to Ebola. This facility was expected to open today on Friday, and it was supposed to have 50 beds. Phase 2 of this project was expected to have 12 isolation beds and 4 high containment beds with no projected deadline for those. But now this project has been stopped. It is unclear what the next step is, but to be honest, I'm actually quite pleased to see a Kenyan court step in because there were so many problems with this plan. One of them being this was perhaps unconstitutional. Now, the U.S. government does have the power to demand a quarantine under Section 361 of the Public Health Service Act, but it was designed for screening on entry, not for barring entry to begin with. Now, as I mentioned, the U.S. has the most state-of-the-art biocontainment facilities in the world. There are several across the country that are fully capable, staffed, and equipped to handle suspected Ebola cases or even just cases of exposure. But to deny their entry to the country is absolutely unacceptable.
So a quarantine and contamination unit that was supposed to be opened in Kenya today for American citizens who have been exposed to Ebola has been shut down by a judge over there. This is happening today, May 30th. So America had said that they are going to be quarantining any Americans. Instead of repatriating them back here, they're going to take them to Kenya. That sparked quite a big outrage between Kenyans, rightfully so. They said, well, if America is apprehensive with specialized healthcare facilities in the U.S., mind you, if they're apprehensive about bringing Americans back, then why are they doing it to Kenya with 0 cases of Ebola? And they're setting up their own quarantine unit. There's not a quarantine unit already set up for Americans. They were going to set it up and have it open today. Anyway, so a union of doctors, over 10,000 doctors, said to the Kenyan government, what are you doing? We didn't okay this. And a judge in Kenya said, no, we're stopping this. We're going to readdress this on June 2nd, and we're going to hear some words because why? And now the union, the doctors union, is saying we need full transparency from the government on why you even agreed to this and why you're doing some backdoor negotiations for funding. Why are we doing this? So America said that no person is going to be stepping foot on our soil who has Ebola, but we're just going to take them to Kenya. And now a Kenya judge is saying, no, I don't think so. We're going to talk about this on June 2nd.
Kenya just told the United States, hell to the no, y'all not about to bring Ebola across our borders. What are you talking about? You setting up a state-of-the-art facility, quarantine, just for Americans that's infected with Ebola or been exposed to Ebola. They was like, nobody's crossing our borders, temporary for now, because they're trying to figure out how is this going to benefit Kenya. And I kind of agree with Kenya because Kenya, they don't have any cases out there of Ebola out there, right? And America is like, because it's closer to Uganda and DRC versus a 12-hour flight back to the United States. But wouldn't it make more sense to set up one of those facilities in in Uganda or the DRC? Why are you trying to spread Ebola? Right? It doesn't make sense. And if I was all African countries need to do what Kenya's doing, close your borders. Like, Yeah, until this stuff get contained because it's spreading rapidly. But as for now, they're just trying to work it out. Like, how is this going to benefit Kenya? And especially if the facility is only for Americans, to treat Americans. So you're going to treat Americans, bring that to our, country, and then bounce and dip. Yeah, and then they got the World Cup coming up. And I think that's in the United States. So they're trying, are y'all trying to import Ebola? Are y'all trying to spread Ebola? Because it only makes sense to nip it where it's at.
And how are you? You know what clicked for me with this Ebola conversation? That it's not even just about Ebola. It's about sovereignty. It's about who is expected to carry the risk for whom. America is publicly saying that Ebola must stay away from their soil. That's okay because we also want, as Kenyans, Ebola to stay away from our soil. And it also tells me that America understands exactly how serious Ebola is. So over and explain to me as if I'm a standard 2 kid. Why is Kenya suddenly part of that conversation? The outbreak is in Congo. The citizens are American. The concern is American. The pressure is American. But somehow Kenya gets into the WhatsApp group. How? This is where we start asking questions. This is one of the reasons that some of these foreign policy discussions start sounding like Africa is one giant administrative bloc instead of a continent made of several countries. Africa is not America. Africa is not 50 states under one federal government. No, Kenya is not an American territory. Congo isn't one either. Neither is Uganda. These are all independent countries with independent governments, with independent citizens, independent priorities, independent consequences to the things that they do. So you cannot mentally move through African countries the way you move between Texas and California. No. That shift of thinking is needed badly by Americans. And before somebody comes here and says, containment facility, understand what citizens are reacting to. Citizens of Africa, number one, are very educated. Very educated. We know what we are talking about. And the people are not just looking at that quarantine room. Oh no, that's what they're looking at. They're not looking at you and going like, oh, but they're giving us money. There is bad money. And we understand that quite well. Africans, Kenyans, we are looking at the entire chain. We are looking at the transport, waste disposal, human error, procurement, corruption, training, corruption, staffing, enforcement, corruption, politics. Did I say corruption? Cover-ups? Yes. And one weak link is enough. And then there's another thing people are ignoring. The countries at the source of these outbreaks have experiences that others do not have. Congo has unfortunately had to fight Ebola repeatedly. And that's a tragedy, we get it. But it also means they've got experience. They know exactly how to do contact tracing. They know how to do isolation, outbreak management. They know how to handle bodies. Those procedures, they know them. They know the warning signs. They know the psychological realities of managing communities during that. If America believes that their citizens deserve that care, then America should carry the responsibility that comes with providing that care. And when we arrive at accountability, people keep saying, if something goes wrong, then compensation will happen. Hooray, compensation. You people make me laugh. Let's imagine a catastrophe happens, and not because we expect one, but because the risk is measured by what happens when stuff fails. Let's say 100,000 families or 100,000 people are affected. Imagine that each and every person who was affected attracts $10 million each. I've not make everybody rich. It would distort everything. We're talking about prices, markets, the currency, inflation, assets, everything. Yes, people will hear that number and think, oh my God, paradise, we are rich. No, that's not how economies work. You do not simply inject that volume of money into a country like Kenya, the economy of it, and expect normalcy. Oh no, you will create instability. You'll create inflation like you have no idea about. You'll create distortions in the markets like you wouldn't believe. And at that stage, the compensation itself becomes part of the disaster that needs to be managed because, yeah, the dead are dead. Public trust is damaged. The country's reputation is in tatters. The economy is forever changed, which means prevention was always the real solution all along, not compensation. And speaking of reputation, Kenya is not just a country like that. No, it's a tourism destination. It's an investment destination. It's a conference destination. Kenya is a brand, and fear travels faster than facts. So the moment international headlines start connecting Kenya with Ebola in the minds of millions of people out there, the world economic consequences begin, whether those fears are founded or unfounded. Tourists will react. Investors will react. The travel advisories, hello, goje wasikie, don't go to Kenya, there is Ebola. You will hear them here. Leave Kenya immediately. If you are caught with Ebola, know that America has got a zero tolerance for Ebola. You will not be allowed in the country without a test. You will not. Oh, you hear all these things. Perception has got consequences. It does. And then there is the final point. The people who opposed these arrangements did not just go on social media. No, they went to court. And the courts have stepped in and the legal system has stepped in because sovereignty is not just something we take lightly, it's a legal reality. And yes, many citizens believe that arrangements involving these high consequential biological risks deserve public scrutiny. That means us as a public, we have to look at those deals. They require legal scrutiny. Those contracts have got to be looked at with better eye, and also democratic scrutiny. Us guys have got to do a public participation about it. That's exactly how sovereign states are supposed to function. Not a president going and signing things unilaterally over there on their own that are going to affect all of us as Kenyans. So after all this, I still come back to the same question. If America believes that these citizens deserve protection, deserve treatment, monitoring, and care, why not bring them home? And then there's another question that naturally follows that one. Okay? Ebola is not only a concern when that patient is alive. No. One of the reasons that Ebola is so taken seriously is because the bodies of people who die from the disease, they remain infectious and they will require strict handling procedures. So if the policy position is truly that Ebola must not enter American territory, we are going to ask the uncomfortable question. What happens if an American citizen dies while being quarantined in Kenya? What happens next? Where is that person going to be buried? Who carries that responsibility? Does that body remain in Kenya? Can it be repatriated? Yeah. If the question is that Ebola must stay away from American soil, does that concern apply only to the living, or does it also apply to the dead? Because citizens are not only thinking about quarantine facilities, we are thinking about the entire life cycle of policy. We told you Kenyans are bright. We are educated. We are thinking about transport, the treatment, the containment. We are looking at the waste. We are looking about if the worst happens in handling of those dead. Those are not unreasonable questions. No, they are not. Us clever Kenyans are evaluating the full consequences of that proposal before it is implemented rather than after. You see, America has planes. America has facilities. America has expertise. America has resources. Why is Kenya being discussed at all? And if the answer to all this is that the Americans do not want Ebola near them, then surely Americans can understand that concern from Africans too, because Africans do not want Ebola near them either. And that's not being anti-American. No, it's not isolationism. It's not hostility. That is what sovereignty looks like. That is what self-preservation looks like, right? And every country has a right to exercise it. Yeah.
The United States announced a deal with Kenya to build a 50-bed Ebola quarantine facility on a military airbase. Kenya had 0 confirmed Ebola cases. The Kenyan government never confirmed the terms. A judge suspended this entire plan this morning. Here's what we know. No fluff, just facts. An Ebola outbreak is tearing through Central Africa. Over 1,000 suspected cases reported. At least 264 people died. The strain is called Bundibujo. No approved vaccine, no approved treatment. Now, the World Health Organization declared this the highest global health emergency on May 17. President Trump's administration decided exposed Americans would not come home. They chose Laikipia Air Base in Kenya, 125 miles north of Nairobi. Now, it's built, staffed, and run entirely by Americans. No Kenyan health officers involved. But Kenya's doctors found out from the news. Their union calls it a backdoor deal and gave the government 48 hours to explain. This morning, High Court Judge Patricia Nyundi issued a full suspension of the plan. No facility, no admissions, case pending. As of today, Kenya has 0 confirmed Ebola cases, and now I shine the spotlight on you, the viewers watching this moment play out in real time. Here's the question I bring forward to the table for open discussion. What are your thoughts about what's happening with the United States Ebola facility deal in Kenya?
So Kenyans have actually rejected this particular deal because it doesn't make sense, and the court has halted. It is actually temporal. So it is something that I learned by June 2nd. That court order will expire. June 2nd, that's when the court order will expire. So listen, this is something that I think Kenyans should fight against. And I learned they are going on demonstration on the 1st or on the 2nd. So listen, you guys should do something about it, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't sit well. When you listen to the videos that I play to you, America is a very huge country. If your citizen has contracted Ebola, take that person straight to America. You have better facilities there. Go and take care of them. But why do you want to? Even the question is, these people contracted this particular Ebola in Congo. Why are you not building that facility in Congo to take care of your people, but rather Kenya? I don't even get it. And the sad thing is, you are building this in Kenya to only serve Americans, not even Kenyans, only American. Does this even make sense? Or does this even sit well with you if you are an American watching this or listening? Does this even make sense? Some time ago, Donald Trump, you said Africa is a shithole. Yes, we accept, but the shithole doesn't want to accept this particular your people setting up whatever in Kenya. So take them back to your country. It is as simple as that. Kenyans should fight against this. And I've seen it that Kenyans, I believe and I trust in you guys. You will do something about it. Thank you so much for watching.